This sting operation sent shockwaves across the country, and almost 2 decades later, people are wondering where is he and what is he up to?
These guys walked away.
You don't want to touch anybody.
With over millions and millions of views, this is one of the most watched videos ever. Considering the sting took place in 2005, there's a lot that has gone down between then and now. But no matter how many decades pass, I don't think anyone can ever get over this weirdo. For the uninitiated, David Kaye is one of the most high-profile stings to have ever been conducted. The man was a prominent member of the society. Actually, know what? He was more like some kind of local celebrity. So was he a politician or maybe an actor? Worse, he was a religious leader. David worked at the Congregation of Agudas Ahim in San Antonio, Texas. And nope, he wasn't a minister or just another preacher, but a freaking rabbi. His profession required him to work with hundreds of Jewish high school students on various political and religious matters every other day. The fact that he was the vice president of the Institute for Jewish Leaders and Values made things even easier for him to fuel his sick desires, as he'd be surrounded with young and energetic youngsters for days at length. While everyone looked at him with respect, this man did not even deserve their spit. And this is why the magnitude of the sting becomes even more evident, and the extent of his crimes become even more unforgivable. Every time I see the clip where this 200-pound wacko enters the house, I feel like smacking him right across the face. Like, how dare he? Just listen to the tone of his voice right here.
Alright.
Hey, hold on a second, I gotta change my shirt, yeah.
Okay.
Tell me it doesn't want to make you shove him down right there. Where did he think he was? At the cat house? Just take a look at the amount of confidence in this guy. He was pacing around like he owned the place or something. Who even are you, mister? If a preacher showing up at the sting house wasn't enough, this weirdo actually had a girlfriend. When the boy asked him if she wouldn't be mad, this is what he replied.
We'll see.
That laugh gets me no matter how many times I listen to it. Signs of his treacherous personality are just beaming out from that laughter alone. This guy cannot be remotely associated with religion. He was a demon. When instead of the boy, Chris showed up, David turned blue.
So how can I help you?
Now, don't think that he was intimidated by the tall gentleman's presence in the room. For all you know, he was already thinking about his next move. He was getting set to put Plan B into action, and you're about to find out what it was in just a bit. But before that, when he was asked the standard question of what he was doing at the sting house, David unwillingly let us in on one of his various traits when he said this.
Not something good.
Why don't you tell me what your plan was?
I don't want to be. This isn't good.
Know what that sounds like? Arrogance. Ain't no way this was his first rodeo. Look at that dripping confidence. Do you see fear in his eyes? I see an unsettling calm that's driving me nuts. This old man was a seasoned offender, and here is proof of it. Wait a minute, who is interrogating whom exactly? I mean, who in the freaking world gave this clown the authority to sit there and fire questions at Chris? David could not stand that someone else other than him was displaying a sense of power in his presence. That's where the preacher-teacher attitude comes into play. He was so used to being the only one who spoke while the rest of the world listened that when someone questioned him, he flipped. Despite all attempts to break his confidence and pride, when he was asked what he did for a living, he didn't have 1 ounce of shame in his voice when he said this.
What do you do for a living? A rabbi.
Ever seen those idiots who start sobbing at this point? I think those losers are better off than this stinker who was sitting here in the sting house with an intention to do some really disgusting things with someone so much younger. And still, the attitude and the pride of who he was hadn't left his awful soul. From the years and years of experience he had behind him, if there's something David aced at, it was manipulation. He knew he was caught. He knew he would soon face the consequences, but he had no idea what it would be. And so, in an attempt to get out of Chris, he tries another approach when he says this.
I don't want to do anything that's going to further make you angry.
Oh, I'm not angry.
You see what he's doing here? He was actually trying to shift and make the whole deal about Chris, not himself. By asking this question, he was trying to make the other person feel more superior than himself. What's the advantage of doing that, you ask? He would first give them the power, and then seek forgiveness. Job done. Neat and easy. How do I know? Psychology, my friends. And trust me, the world needs more of that right now. Coming back, after sharing all the explicit images of him doing stuff on others and a ton more pictures and videos that shouldn't actually be shared with someone so young, he at least got one thing right, that he was in trouble. But there was this one question that actually left this skunk speechless.
You've never done this before.
That reaction right there speaks way more than words. That mum's silence for those few seconds can be translated into anything, any number of people he had preyed on, or probably he'd lost count. But all that was gonna change when the cameras popped out.
You don't want to touch anybody.
That reality hit him like lightning, huh? Did you guys see the John Cena move he whipped out in the end? This is even more embarrassing than the confrontation. David had no idea he was being taped. The composure that he maintained all the while shattered the moment he spotted the rest of the team. Out of nowhere, David became assertive when he said this.
You're free to leave anytime.
Aw, come on, stop trying, you skunk. Do you think you can actually counsel the hell out of Chris and maybe brainwash him? It's only a matter of time before you'll be dragged to jail. So, can you please shut up already? If you leave it to me, I know just the trick to send this man closer to God anyway. But for now, let's leave it to Chris and his team. Needless to say, Chris was pretty dumbfounded when the 50-something-year-old bag of filth lunged towards him out of nowhere. When he could be a rabbi who was so twisted in his head, he can be anything, at this point, I don't think he bothered keeping up pretenses anymore. His cover was blown. The entire team had to pitch in to subdue the situation, and when he was given the green signal to leave, he bolted out towards the exit like there was no coming back. Did the team have to go looking for him? No. David caught on to a new obsession, and this time, Chris was at the receiving end of it. Ever seen two lovebirds call each other endlessly, like there was no tomorrow, trying to listen to each other's voices all day long? That's what happened to Chris. But in David's case, something was missing. Love.
And he was downright mean. He blamed us for his situation.
This was a smart move? Hell no! But he tried to bargain anyway. After days and days of his calls bombarding the watchdog organization's number, they finally got back to him with an offer. David could now choose to sit down for an interview and then explain his stance, probably even apologize for his actions. But this is where it becomes clear that David was deluded. He still thought he was the one in charge. David put forth a condition, and this is what Chris had to say about it.
If we didn't show the video from the house, didn't show his face, or identify what he did for a living. And obviously, those were conditions we could not meet.
You can sense the height of desperation David was in. But hey, you brought this one on yourself. By yourself. No one is to blame other than you. And at some time or another, you've gotta pay back. David had a lot to lose, but did his dignity desert him when he looked up youngsters online for doing vile things? Had it been that way, this story would have been cut short by a great deal. Stick around, guys. We're now heading into the juicy part of the video. What David does next is going to baffle you, just like it did the entire TV production house. Back then, unlike most weirdos who got caught right after, the cops weren't working in collaboration with the watchdog. The team, however, was able to not only follow up on him, but also report him with solid evidence to the nearest police headquarters. There's no way the team could let the rabid rabbi out in the open all over again. With the new developments taking shape, did David give up on his efforts to freedom? In truth, David pushed harder. When he understood the team wasn't going to back down after his ceaseless torture, David decided to do something irrational. He sued them, but that is only after he deactivated his online account and tried to wipe his hard drive clean. Right now, I hope you deactivated yourself, you pile of garbage. There are things people do to leave a positive footprint in this world, but this is one footprint we're better off not having. But like I said earlier, David wanted his reputation to be clean, and after umpteen number of efforts, Chris met up with Kaye for a second interview at some nearby hotel. If it was for me, I'd nab him right there. Like hell, man, he just came to you. Get him right there, you guys. But the team allowed David to speak, and what he said was the purest form of BS. Yes, after all that went down, this sicko had the nerve to demand that the team not show his face if at all the sting was to be aired. And his demands didn't end there. He then asked them to not reveal anything about his identity or his past, and keep it all under wraps. Yeah, right, consider it done, you muckface. In which case, can you explain to me what's the point of the entire sting then? Why go through everything just to keep everything under wraps? No deal done here, bro. Just keep walking on. Go ahead to your shambles and we'll send someone over with a warrant to get you to the right place. Prison. What followed was for the Watchdog org to hand over every last bit of evidence to the Fairfax County, Virginia police. But guess what? Apparently, the evidence presented wasn't enough to put this guy behind bars. And this is where things get even more interesting. Because you know what? The FBI got involved. Kaye was now an A-list offender, like a criminal of the highest order. And boy, why does this sound so good to my ears? What followed was a tedious and long process to get this man what he deserved. But before getting into the legal grind, there was something more important to do: to strip the man of all possible positions he held in society. For one, his wife dumped him and filed for divorce, and I don't think his girlfriend wanted to hang out with him anymore as well. But there were more damages in store. David had to resign from his position as the VP of the Jewish Youth Program and give up his duties as a rabbi in the synagogue he worked at. Forget about losing the position, David was not even allowed to pray at a synagogue in suburban Washington. Thereafter kicked off a trial where David, along with his legal team, tried their best to slam the TV production house for planting the young boy and luring the unsuspecting rabbi into the trap. But did the watchdog or the boy ask you to share explicit images with him? Did they force you to drive all the way to come and meet him in person with dirty intentions? Just cut the crap and own up already. Do at least one thing right in your life, especially since it's the question of your own life. Think the crazy old man didn't apply for bail? The judges didn't even give him a chance to. They denied every last possibility of the demented man getting a bail, stating public safety as a reason, and I'm so glad that that happened. In May 2006, Rabbi David Kaye was booked under 2 charges. One was for basically forcing the kid to do something with threats and do something illegal, and the other was that he was traveling to do some shady business. Meanwhile, there were more revelations than you can ever imagine that surfaced during the trial. David eventually admitted that he went to the Sting House to meet a youngster. He also admitted to having several encounters with people that he met online, but none of them were children. I think I'll pass that last sentence as a blunt lie. But the fact that he admitted to his wrong deeds gave him some kind of advantage during the sentencing. After David was found guilty of both charges, what should have been 60 years behind bars was reduced to 6.5 years of prison and 10 years of probation. Additionally, he would have to register himself as an offender, and he can never be around children under the age of 18 without another adult nearby. David tried to justify his presence at the Sting House by saying that it was a cry out for help to face my inner demons. Well, at least one way or the other, he did accept that he had a demon inside of him. But that's not the end of the story. After David got out after serving his term, he tried to join a Jewish church, but he was denied membership, and the reasons for doing so are pretty obvious. David then tries to get into any congregation far and wide and tries to pull all strings possible to get his job as a rabbi back, but no matter where he went, he was denied entry. The board had decided that David would not be welcomed, keeping in mind the safety of our children, responsibility, repentance, and the compelling needs of the community at large. With nothing much left to do in life, David got back to his antics. David was arrested for the second time only 1 year after his release for not registering as an offender, using the internet without prior approval, and for viewing explicit images on the internet. David was so glued to his disgusting obsession that he was arrested again for the 3rd time in 2018 for repeatedly violating the terms of his probation, for buying unauthorized devices to access the internet, for using Craigslist like a dating website, and for sneaking and buying things without the knowledge of his probation officer. This led to another 6 months of jail time with possibility of more restrictions after his release. One of these arrests occurred during a counseling session when his unauthorized cell phone started to buzz. Just imagine the plight of it. He could not even own or use a cell phone or a computer at his age without prior permission. That's something you got on yourself, David. If you were true to your profession, your family, and your community, none of this would have happened. He was incarcerated again in 2021, and he was locked up in the Alexandria City Jail. Today, David is classified as a Tier 3 offender. which is the highest risk offender. This bozo is not fit to be a preacher, not a rabbi, and not even fit to be a person. Going from being a respected Jewish rabbi to being featured in the Jewish Community Wall of Fame, David Kaye has been through a journey which he has nothing to be proud of. David was actually living this double life for over 30 years. On one side, he was this respected member of the Jewish community, and on the other, he was preying on men to satisfy his undying urges. With time, David started shedding his guard as the magnitude of his obsession grew. He was more open to taking risks, and the men he was looking for got younger and younger with time. When Chris had asked him, "What is a man of God doing here?" David very shamelessly had answered saying, "No man is a god." Well, you don't have to be God, but you could at least be a dignified human being, something David Kaye never was, and never will be. But who knows? There may be more religious men out there who are downright disgusting and still choose to hide under the pretense of being holy.